Well, what's up, guys? Geez, Harry already?
I was waiting for Sean to do our introduction. I've gotten so used to Sean introducing us and telling everybody who we are.
Well, too late now. He already said off air that he's going to count us down, and this is already just a fantastic start. Hi, Harry.
What's up, Patrick? It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while in our proper time slot. We were with everybody last week.
Oh, yeah, but that was about 4 hours from now, 1 week ago.
Which, I'm curious, hopefully our producer man can tell us. I wonder what kind of ratings we did for our pay-per-view review. Anywho, carry on.
Anyway, so, yeah, if you want to hear Harry and I talk about Clash of Champions, you can go back and look back in the archives, the W2M archives, either on Spreaker, on SoundCloud, on pretty much anything you could possibly think of. That was a mighty interesting show. In terms of our show, though, welcome in, as always, to a regular edition of Wrestling Unwrapped. He is Harry Waters. I am Patrick Ketza. And finally, after 2 damn months of waiting, and one extra delay because he didn't, finally, we're going to go through NCW Femme Fatales, show number 5. It's about damn time.
I know, it's like people fell asleep at the wheel or something.
Look, we're not going to go there because we've all made mistakes, and you know this, Harry.
You got to admit, that was funny.
Yes, it was, but we've all made mistakes. Nobody's getting blamed on anything.
Well, and in fairness, it's not like any of our listeners are going to get what I'm referencing with that anyway, so it's not like it matters in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly, so,
It's funny to us, and that's all that matters.
That's pretty much the entire point of our show, is making ourselves laugh.
Sadly, you're not wrong.
I know.
But yeah, we got this NCW show to finally get to after this one. We may as well actually get to it because I'd like to be done at a reasonable hour. It's a pretty good Thursday night game that I kind of want to watch.
What day?
It's a pretty good Sunday night game I kind of want to watch. Yeah, I know what I said. Just ignore it.
No, I won't ignore it, Mr. Perfectionist.
No, never claimed that. Never will.
You're no Kurt Hennig.
We're not reviewing anything with him anytime soon, unfortunately. I feel like our show needs more Kurt Hennig.
I don't know. The problem is, I think in that case, our running joke would have to be how many times could we say perfect in one episode?
Our segues would be anything but at this point.
Very true. But indeed, I think enough stalling here because I do kind of want to watch the Steelers, beat the Chiefs. Please, Steelers win. I've already taken enough losses today.
Yeah, by the way, congratulations on that. You're leading the W2M Pick'em. Congratulations. Yeah. I'm 2-1.
No. I'm not leading. I'm destroying you guys. I'm leading by almost 1 full week.
To be fair, I missed 1 full week, so I would be relatively close to you had I not had issues and not been able to access a computer last week.
You would still be 7 points behind me.
But still closer than anybody else. I'm saying.
But, yes, be that as it may, so that we can actually, get to that eventually. Why don't we get to it? An international dream match main event as Ayako Hamada takes on LuFisto for LuFisto's International Championship, and we have to deal with her again.
For long-time listeners of the show, you know who her is. For new listeners to the show, strap yourselves in. It's going to be a bumpy ride for this one.
It's not just sitting on your chest.
You got a show date for me, or do I need to check my list?
Hang on.
I mean, I can check my list. It's right in front of me.
Well, then, lazy.
From the NC...
The date I have is March 12, 2011.
That is the date I have as well. From the NCW Arena, there's Northern Canadian Wrestling, I believe, if memory serves.
Sure.
This is Femme Fatales Volume 5, and these are your results. Are you ready?
Please, by all means.
All right, we're not going to actually cover them, but the pre-show matches see Angie Sky take out Xandra Bale with an unprettier at 5:44, and the Sherbrooke connection of Kira and Louie defeat the team of Missy, and I ain't even going to try to pronounce her first name, so I'll just say X.Vex.
Zorfia Vex?
Zorfia? Is that it?
It's my best guess, because there's an X on the front of it.
Whatever. Sherbrooke Connection wins in 2 minutes and 28 seconds. All right. The actual show itself. Sweet Cherie defeats Kelly Skater at 6'10" with an inverted suplex lift to stunner, also known more commonly to wrestling fans as the Shogun. Masato Tanaka used to use it a lot. R-Truth has popularized the use of it in the Fed, if that puts it into any kind of context for anybody. Allison Danger taps out Anastasia Ivy at 10 minutes and 7 seconds with a leg trap dragon sleeper. La Perfite Caroline pins Karen Brooks with a famouser at 8:47. Cheerleader Melissa wins a three-way.
We'll get to that.
Pinning Shanae at 12 minutes and 3 seconds. Courtney Rush defeats Cat Power in a street fight at 18:46 with a trash can-assisted Van Terminator.
And Sarah Connor.
Say what now?
And Sarah Connor.
Like 4 people are going to get that joke. Really? You interrupted me for that? Anyways.
Maybe.
Horror defeats Mistress Belmont with a spear at 6:13. Mercedes Martinez pins Calamity at 8:52 with a Fisher Woman Buster.
This again.
It's my match list, and I'll write it how I want to.
Yeah.
And LuFisto retains the NCW International Heavyweight Championship, pinning Ayako Hamada with a kind of burning hammer.
I'd say it was pretty damn close to an actual burning hammer.
Yeah, but not nearly the head droppery that the one Porsche took at Volume 4.
Well, that's Porsche.
That's true.
Remind me, what did Porsche retire from?
Neck shoot. Okay, you might be onto something there.
Yeah, I kind of don't blame LuFisto for hitting a kind of burning hammer.
Well, that's how I have it written down. It's a kind of burning hammer, and it's kind of got a freak out. And holy crap, it's kind of pouring in Pittsburgh. I'm glad I didn't go to this game.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still pouring in Tampa.
No, it's just storming there. But enough of our talk about sports. We'll talk about sports more towards the end of the show. Before we get into it, tonight's episode of Wrestling Unwrapped is brought to you by the Madhouse Toy Chest. Stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest. DVDs, action figures, magazines, books, pretty much anything wrestling related that you can think of, you can find it inside of the Madhouse Toy Chest. Mention that you heard this advertisement here on Wrestling Unwrapped. Receive a free gift with your purchase. That is the Madhouse Toy Chest on eBay. Stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest. In addition, we are a presentation of the W2M Network in association with 411mania.com.
Won't lie. Completely forgot about that.
Well, you're lucky I pay attention to these things.
Most of the time I pay attention to it, too. I just happen to miss it this time.
Well, all the same, it's done. We're square. Let's get into the show.
Yes, let's. Oh, God, I don't want to deal with her again.
It's all one right. Match. It's one match. It's like 7 minutes. We'll get through it, and then we'll move on to the rest of the awesomeness that awaits for us on this card, because there are 3 really good matches awaiting our presence.
Yeah, can you remain unbiased on one certain match?
I have no idea what certain match you're talking about, but I will try to.
It's the one that you would be most likely to be unbiased, and the one that I would also be most likely to be unbiased. Or rather, be biased. Sorry. The street fight. We'll get to it.
No, actually, I would be more biased towards I would probably be more biased towards the 3-way, but that's because my favorite female wrestler's in that match.
Oh, yeah. All right. All righty. So, yeah, indeed, the dream match for a main event awaits us. But first, we got to get through a couple of roadblocks. And hopefully, Donald Trump won't send us north of the border for covering this show. This would be NCW Femme Fatales number 5.
You're fired.
It's going to be huge.
Huge.
Anyway,
much like that Mexican.
We're not gonna cover the dark matches, mostly because we didn't watch the dark matches.
Well, I watched the dark matches, but there's nothing to cover. Angie and Sandra isn't terrible. The tag match is a mess.
I'm not surprised. There's a reason that only one of them ever made it to Shimmer, and I think she was only there once.
You are, of course, referring to Sandra Bale.
No, I'm talking about the tag match.
Oh, I didn't know any of them had ever made it to Shimmer.
And that's if Kira even made it onto Shimmer. She's only on Sparkle.
Don't get me wrong, both members of the Sherbrooke Connection were cute. They just weren't particularly good.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised, but we've already covered probably more than we should have. So, the opening match here is,
Wait, no.
What?
No, we're not going to start with the opening match. First, we're going to talk about the music video that opens the show, because Femme Fatales did a better job in the first 6 minutes of their show than Shimmer has ever done of updating the fans on their storylines. Look, I know you're a Shimmer apologist, and I understand that. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of the product as well, but the simple fact of the matter is more times than not, Shimmer only airs little clips before matches in order to update people on the product. Femme Fatales actually went through the trouble of giving you a nice highlight reel of what happened at Volume 4 in case you didn't have it, and if you don't, I'd suggest getting it if you're going to get Volume 5 as well, because Volume 4 they crowned the first champion.
Spoiler, you jerk.
We're talking about her defending the title. I think they probably put 2 and 2 together. Anyways.
This means nothing to me.
In addition, they also do a really good job of setting up the card for tonight, for tonight's show by introducing all the players and hyping up all the important matches. So frankly, I think the music video inclusion was a nice touch, and I actually really enjoyed it. I wanted to give them credit where credit was due for actually taking the time to put that together and include it on the DVD.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely 100% right. It is great because of the fact that much like Shimmer, yeah, it's probably going to happen. We're probably going to make a few comparisons. Oh well. Much like Shimmer, the Femme Fatales shows were pretty much, they would run on a very similar schedule. They would run about every 4 months. So they do usually both Shimmer weekends and then one during the summer in between. because Shimmer doesn't want to run because, as we found out this past summer, you don't want to run when it's 90 degrees out. It made for an absolute nightmare. So, but they still have a long amount of time in between their respective shows. So the fact that they were able to catch everybody up and talk about, why our main event is happening, why the street fight is happening. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, not only did they cover the quote-unquote important matches, but I think they just covered everything. Which makes for one mistake with one match because it was clear that the graphics weren't updated in time for the specific show in one match's name.
Actually, there were two different matches that would have updates coming into the show, but we'll talk about those two matches when we get to them. Now, like I said, I just want to give credit where credit was due for the music video package and the fact that, and another thing I think stands out about this too is the fact that they had their own music done specifically for this show in regards to the band actually doing the song for the music video, and they very specifically mentioned NCW Femme Fatales too. So the song is specifically catered towards NCW. So it's a nice touch as well that adds a semblance of credibility to the product. And like you were saying, though, as far as the timeline goes, absolutely correct, too, because it would have been 4 months since their last show back in October of 2010 going into this particular Volume 5.
Yeah, like I said, I think the schedule is usually both Shimmer weekends and then one extra in between during the summer, which is why, even though, it's not much more often, but that's generally why, plus where they are, why you have a more homegrown and more North American talent than anything. It was usually, if it was happening during Shimmer weekend, much like with Shine as well, that's the only time you would see them use any major international talent, which is part of the reason why it's kind of a surprise in this case, getting a little bit into our opener of who's actually in it. And I don't mean Sweet Charity.
No, you're referring to the Raid Tank, Kelly Skater, who I'm guessing was probably just getting her start in Shimmer around this time as well.
Well, this would be 2011, so no, I think she'd have been coming to Shimmer for about a year by this point.
Okay, I sit corrected.
Sorry.
Definitely her first appearance inside of NCW, however.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We have a debut in our first two matches, as a matter of fact.
Yes, and we'll talk about the second match when we get to the second match. But let's first talk about the first match here. NCW sound system is garbage. I could barely hear any of Kelly Skater's promo.
It's okay, I could barely hear her music. Unfortunately, and I like this company, I do. But, yeah, there's going to be a couple recurring themes here. One, some of the camera work drives me nuts. Two, the sound could be better. The crowd sounded great, but...
Yeah, definitely an enthusiastic crowd. I will say that much. It was certainly an enthusiastic crowd. But like you were saying there, as far as the sound system goes, when your sound system sounds the way that it does and comes away across the way that it does on DVD, it makes your company look Bush League. Now,
trust me, Sorry.
I've had an opportunity to watch a couple of the later shows. I have 1 through 7. I don't have anything past 7. I know you have up to like 12 or something, I think you said.
5th anniversary, which I think was 16.
Okay. Well, all the same, you have way more there, and I would hope that this is something that they would improve on as far as sound quality and as far as like the camera work and stuff. But at this particular time, you could definitely tell it was a newer established company. But given the fact that they were piggybacking on an established company in Canada, in Northern Canadian wrestling there, you would think that this would be the kind of stuff that they would have excelled at rather than the stuff they would be having difficulties with.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, like, if it was NCW, was Northern Championship Wrestling having these things? Because, like I said, the sound was one thing. The main, and we'll get this out of the way too, the main issue I had was not the hard cam, but whenever they would do like in-ring stuff and they used handy cams, that was sometimes hard to watch, either because of the constant movement, or the shaking, or just at one point, I thought I counted something like 6 camera cuts in 15 seconds, which is absurd. So, I think at this point, real quick, I'll finish with this. I think at this point, they were running on the same day as an NCW show. So that's why I'm wondering, was NCW themselves also going with this stuff? Because it does make it look Bush League and minor league for what was probably at the time one of the larger companies in Canada.
I don't know what it is you're doing over there, but if you're walking around over there, your phone conversations are fading in and out, and I'm only catching bits and pieces. Kind of ironic. We're talking about their technical difficulties, and you're having some of your own.
And I will stop moving.
And I can hear you perfectly fine now.
Can you still hear me now?
Anyways.
I'm asking. I'm seriously asking.
Yeah,
okay.
You're good now. I can clearly hear everything you're saying now. No, it's the issue that I had was this will be the last thing I say about it until we get a little bit later on into the show, because it kind of gives away something I wanted to discuss later. But this will be the last thing I'll say about it for now. As I was saying earlier, you make your company look Bush League when you have these kind of issues there, and with the amount of talent that is actually involved on this show, the last thing that this company could have afforded to do was to have their own production make them look Bush League.
Yeah, it's not a, how do I say, it's not a good first impression, especially if, say you have someone who's a fan of Hamada, because I believe Hamada was either close to or was in TNA by now. If not, maybe even she won half of the tag champs at this point.
The timeline seems like it. No, she would have been done with TNA by this point. I think I think she was done with TNA by the end of 2010. Because I know her and Awesome Kong won the Knockout Tag titles on the January 4th, 2010 Impact when they went head to head with Raw and got their asses smacked.
Well, seriously, folks, though, if you're not listening to our show, buy Bound for Glory. And I usually beat that. Please buy Bound for Glory. Anyway. But I think that's enough of us talking about the technical aspects, at least for now. So let's
talk about the match itself here. Nice to see Kelly Skater getting her name out there. Sweet Cherie is one of those women who I think that if Femme Fatales had any kind of interest in being a major player in the national scene, like in the overall women's wrestling scene, I don't think that she would have been a focal point. I don't think she could have been a focal point. She got good reactions from the crowd, but none of her stuff looked crisp to me, whereas Kelly Skater was completely outclassing her.
Yeah, which is kind of weird considering the time frame that we're in at this point. When you're talking about Kelly Skater, of all people, outclassing people, because at this point now, and we're talking 5.5 years ago now, Kelly Skater still was not the wrestler she would later become, especially once she started teaming more with Tomoka Nakagawa in 3G and would just evolve from there. So by this point, Sweet Cherry, who is a trainee under LuFisto, her and Calamity, which kind of explains stuff that happened and why Calamity was a major player and why Sweet Cherry would become a major player in Femme Fatales for a time.
Nepotism.
Let's not go that far.
Sorry, I had something caught in my throat there. I'm good.
Okay, good. But it's I could see why at this point Sweet Cherry was opening the show and why Calamity and LuFisto were, the main event talent. I think Sweet Cherry would eventually get better, but at this point, not yet.
Well, and the thing about it, too, is you mentioned the fact that Cherry and Calamity are both trainees of LuFisto. But the in-ring gap between the two of them is so vastly acknowledgeable on the show here. Whereas Sweet Cherie struggles to stay step for step with Kelly Skater, Calamity has an almost 9-minute match with Mercedes Martinez a little bit later on in the show, and it's one of the better matches on the show.
Yeah, there's very, very little doubt about that of who was exceeding between the two at this point.
Well, to be fair, though, I will say this much. Given the gulf of difference in the opponent's skill levels at this point as well, I mean, at this point, Kelly Skater was obviously no Mercedes Martinez.
And you could pretty much say that she's still not Mercedes Martinez.
All the same, my point remains.
Yeah. But in the end, Sweet Cherie, I think more of a hometown kind of thing. Sweet Cherie ends up picking up the win, which I don't exactly blame them for doing that.
No, babyface win in the opening match in order to get the crowd off to a hard start. It makes sense. I mean, Kelly Skater was more gimmick over ability at this point, but the thing was is her gimmick was so easily hateable that it worked for these kind of matches.
And the best part is, she wasn't even in the Rue-roids yet.
Actually, she had her bottle of Rue-roids with her.
But it wasn't a thing like it would become.
No. Like, it wasn't acknowledged or chanted upon, but she did have her bottle with her, so.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about that. So, but yes, Sweet... What?
I was just going to say, Rue-roids was in its beta phase at this point.
Yeah, there we go. So, getting into our next match here, it is... How am I blanking all of a sudden?
Anastasia and Allison.
Yeah, wow, I feel dumb. Getting into our second match here, another Femme Fatale debut here as the Queen of Old School, which I think she actually was referred to here. Allison Danger takes on Anastasia Ivy. I didn't even realize she was the Queen of Old School. I know her brother's the King of Old School, but I didn't know she was the Queen.
I think Carino may have been a regular for NCW at this time. I would have to look that up to confirm, but that would be the reason for that introduction, I would imagine.
I do wonder, how long did it take for people to actually realize that they were brother and sister?
They never really acknowledged... Well, Ring of Honor acknowledged it early in their careers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know how many of the early Ring of Honor shows you haven't seen. Ring of Honor acknowledged it super early in their careers that Allison Danger was Carino's little sister.
Not much early Ring of Honor, unfortunately for me. But yeah, but I mean, other than Ring of Honor, it's never really been fully mentioned.
Very, very few promotions have actually ever taken advantage of it. Although, to be fair, I can't think of a whole lot of promotions other than Ring of Honor that they were in at the same time either.
Which, yeah, that's probably a single hand maybe. That might be just Ring of Honor. That's not important though. I mean, the only real takeaway that I have from this, aside from the fact that in this case the face wins again, but in this case Allison Danger, I think, was the face, although she was arguing with the crowd quite a bit, which made it a little weird.
I hate to say this because we've spoken kindly about Allison before on this show. But at times there is something inherently unlikable about her. And I think she realizes that. I think she realizes that she plays a better heel than she does babyface. I know you can't comment on grounds that you may incriminate yourself and have her kick you out of the Berlin Eagles Club.
Well, it's not so much that, I just don't, now that I actually think about it, I don't have much in terms of her as a heel. Because, like I said, the thing I know her best from is Shimmer, and obviously she was, being one of the owners, although, worst kept secret kind of thing. But she's never been heel in Shimmer, so the only thing, I couldn't even really think of anything that I would know her to be a heel, which kind of could be the issue, because I absolutely see where you're coming from. Yeah, there can be a little bit of a hateable part to her.
Well, even in her personality, like, I don't know if you remember the feud with Cindy Rogers that she had at the beginning of Shimmer.
Somewhat, yes.
She came off very unlikable at times during that as well. And Rogers was clearly the heel in that situation, but like the whole thing about yelling at the referee, not for complaining about people cheating and stuff, and then didn't she use the pinfall for the ropes for a pinfall in one of her matches with Cindy? So like the whole hypocritical thing kind of snuck into her character in there. And she's notorious for being heels she was notorious for being a heel in other promotions, and she was almost entirely a heel for her entire run in Ring of Honor.
Yeah, so like I said, the problem is I don't have much of her in Ring of Honor, which is a problem. Yeah, there can be. I totally see where you're coming from, and I'm not even. I'm trying my best to actually remain unbiased here, because I know that's what you're going for with me. But yeah, there's kind of a I don't even, not even an anti-hero, but she's almost like.
People kind of cheer for her despite the fact that she acts kind of villainous.
She's almost an anti-face.
A face that acts like a heel?
Yes.
I could totally see that. That's a very accurate description, actually.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to go for as I was stalling and mumbling as to what I wanted to say. But yeah, she's almost like an anti-face here. Because, and make no mistake, the crowd did cheer her, but there were just, I don't know if it was just a couple of people in the crowd that were bugging the hell out of her or what, but she just would not stop with them.
Well, I think what happens is, and Allison tended to do this in Ring of Honor as well, she would find the one or two people going after her the most and jaw with them for the entire time.
It makes sense to me. But I don't know. But in the end here, Allison Danger ends up picking up the victory. So, and we got a lot of matches to get through, so we should probably move on here.
Just one more thing about this particular match in regards to Allison there. I question the placement of this match on the card, and also my biggest question is why you would put Allison against somebody like Anastasia. Like, I get wanting to give one of your younger talents a veteran to work with, but I think that maybe Allison and Sherry may have been the way to go with it, and then put Kelly Skater against Anastasia, excuse me.
I don't know. It seems like they kind of... I almost wonder if did the company know what kind of show they were looking towards and kind of wanted to, I don't want to say get Danger out of the way, but not try to make her a major focal point?
Booked her because of the Shimmer talent that were on the show rather than any actual intention of using her long term. I mean, I don't think she showed up again in Femme Fatale.
I don't know about that.
This game.
But moving on.
Yes, let's.
Moving on to our third match, and I almost want to go back to the second match now. It is La Perfect. Is it Caroline or Caroline?
Caroline. It's French. It's La Perfect Caroline.
The perfect Caroline, I know. Against Karen Brooks, the seemingly yoga instructor, or...
Actually, I think her gimmick is that of, like, one of those old-school, like, workout video chicks. Like the, what was her name? There was a model back then that used to do those kind of videos, like back in the late 80s, early 90s. Like a supermodel that did this, like Cindy Crawford kind of videos.
The let's get physical kind of videos?
Yes. Well, that was, wasn't that Olivia Newton-John?
Yes, that was.
The fact that I know that saddens me a little bit inside.
Why?
Because it's not something that I should probably know at my age. Anyways, yeah, but that's that kind of thing. I think I think the gimmick is like a workout video instructor, not so much like a yoga teacher. I think it's more of like a workout video kind of chick.
I don't know. I just look at her and see jazzercise.
I don't get that reference, but I'll assume it's valid, and we'll go ahead and move on.
No! Never mind. Anyway, not really much that you can actually say about this one, just because remember what you just said about Kelly Skater, that it was kind of all sizzle, no steak?
Yes, Skater was definitely more gimmick over content at that point.
Guess what?
Yes, the same could be said for both of these women.
Yep. Which, is kind of a problem. And
the thing about I'm cutting you off here real quick. The thing about Caroline, though, is Caroline had a gimmick that fans in NCW genuinely disliked, which made her a valid heel. And I think in a promotion like this, if you can find a gimmick where you can get booed, then it's of an importance to the company.
I mean, yeah, it makes sense, but at the same time, I'm probably going to catch flack for this one. They both almost seem like something out of Glow.
I could see it. I'm almost certain that Glow actually had one of those music video kind of instructor gimmicks in it too, so I could definitely see where you're coming from with that line of thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but I could definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's just, and in the end, Caroline ends up picking up the victory, but I found, if I'm not mistaken, I nearly dozed off during this match because I was relatively bored during it.
It's not that it was incompetent, it's that it was basic.
Yeah,
like
it was a very by the numbers match.
You could tell that these were two women who, and I'm just guessing here, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm guessing personally based on what I saw of them and what I've seen of them. These were two women who were relatively new into the ring and decided to go out there and have a match where they wouldn't embarrass themselves rather than going out there and trying to have a match that people might actually want to watch.
Yeah, it seemed like this was more of a practice match. Like, it almost felt like this should have been a dark match.
I think Caroline, I think her gimmick prevents that. Just the fact that her gimmick is such a heat magnet that you're going to want to get this kind of thing featured on the show. But I understand where you're coming from as far as these two feeling inferior, I guess, to the talent that had surrounded them thus far.
And yeah, because if you look at like almost every other match on this card, the two of them, I almost feel terrible for specifically the two of them, just because almost every other match has at least one relatively or very good known name at this point, aside from maybe the street fight at this point. And but when I say at this point, I mean the date of the show. Because look at it, you have Kelly Stater, who is at least becoming more well-known around the world. Remember, she is from Victoria, Australia. Then you had Allison Danger in the next match. The match following theirs, you had cheerleader Melissa. Then you follow that up with, at this point, Cat Power was a relatively known name, especially in Canada. Then you go with Mercedes Martinez, and then the main events. And, well, the only other match would be that one that didn't have two relatively well-known people.
I think, as much as I hate to say it, I think one of the participants in that match had something of a following. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessarily for the right reasons, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah. So, but in the end, Caroline picks up the victory. So, speaking of production mistakes, how about this next match?
I'm real quick, though. What the hell kind of finish is a famouser?
One that can win you the Intercontinental Championship?
Yeah, back in 2000.
Okay.
This is 10 years later. I never liked that move as a finish. I don't like it as a finish when Jannetty was doing it. I'm actually a big fan of Marty Jannetty.
Hey, it was not the famouser when Jannetty did it. Say it right.
Yes, it was the rocker dropper. I'm aware of that, but it was still the same move. It's the same move, though. I mean, by and large. Jannetty hooked the arm, Billy Gunn didn't, but by and large, same move.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Billy Gunn had a bit more spring in his step than Jannetty did. I'm actually serious. It's not a joke, because remember, Billy Gunn was able to do it with a guy who was standing on a table.
Oh, no, I don't disagree that Gunn made it look effective. I just don't think it was a finish. Like, I liked his Cobra Clutch Slam more than I liked the famouser. I like the one and only more than I like the famouser, but that's just me. All right, enough talk about Billy Gunn, who is not involved in any way on this show.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get into the four-way.
The what?
Let's go ahead and get into the four-way.
The what?
You're killing the joke. Run with it.
Yes, the four-way that features three people.
I have a sinus headache, and you just made me facepalm. Thanks.
Well, it was a four-way that featured three people. What do you want?
That was the joke. Anyway, for those of you wondering what the hell Patrick and I are talking about, and frankly at this point I wouldn't blame you if you were, the production, the music video at the start of the show that we discussed mentions the fact that there is a four-way schedule for this show. Shanae, Mary Lee Rose, Cherry Bomb, and cheerleader Melissa. One of those things is not together.
Can I cut you off really, really quick?
Sure.
They showed the exact same graphic before the match, too.
One of those things is not like the other. That thing would be Cherry Bomb because she wasn't at the show.
Yeah.
It's actually a freeway match between Shanae, Mary Lee Rose, and cheerleader Melissa.
And my guess is that my best guess would be Cherry Bomb. I believe you were the one who told me he was most likely injured at this point. My guess is it had to be like really, really soon before the show that, it was confirmed she wouldn't be there. Otherwise, there's no excuse.
Speaking of no excuses, do you have the game on in the background?
No, I'm outside.
Okay, never mind then. We'll talk more about it later. All right, moving on.
Okay.
No, and see, I'm kind of indifferent here because I get the whole card subject to change thing. But at the same time, if you're going to use that graphic in the music video on the show before them, that's fine. Now, if you're going to air that graphic before the match when you know she's not there, there's something wrong with your production crew. You're telling me that that graphic couldn't have been edited so that way Cherry Bomb wasn't included in it for the actual match itself? So I have a funny feeling it probably could have been.
I would have a feeling that it probably could have been too. I absolutely 100% question it. It was just like, why? You know, because that threw me off too, because I happen to see results and I only see 3 people, but when I go to watch the DVD, which to be fair, the DVD case had to be made after the show because the DVD case has it right. And I think the menu screen does too. They both say 3-way.
Yeah. The main screen says Shanae versus Mary Lee Rose versus Melissa.
Yeah, and the case definitely does too. But those would be made, you know, well after the fact. So I don't know. Getting into the actual match itself, let's face it, between the 3 of them, like you said earlier, one of these things is not like the others.
Yeah, no kidding. Clearly, both of the Canadian women involved in this match were way out of their league in the ring with somebody like Melissa. But I think that was kind of the point for the show, is to bring in Melissa, to have her on the show, because they probably know as well as a lot of people do at this point, Melissa on your show means people will buy it just to see her.
Yeah. And, I mean, at this point, we are roughly 5-6 months away from Melissa becoming the Shimmer champion. So, you know, she's kind of known at this point.
Dude.
Oh, you knew.
I did know, but I didn't know the time frame.
You don't know what volume that is?
No, and you're not going to tell me either.
No, I'm not. Anyway.
Good.
Somebody between the 2 of us is trying to catch up on all the volumes and doesn't want me to spoil, even though he already knows she wins the belt.
Well, in fairness, as I mentioned earlier, she is my favorite female wrestler.
Yes, of course. Spoiler alert, she wins it twice.
I'm aware of the title history of the company. I just don't know where it happens.
Okay. Anyway. But yeah, this was one match where you had no doubt who was going to win, and there was essentially just no question. There wasn't even like going to be a fluky thing where, you know, like Melissa hits the Kudo driver and then gets dumped out of the ring somehow. It was just, this match was having none of that. You knew Melissa was going to win. Lo and behold, Melissa wins. There was no doubt.
See, I disagree with you. I actually think it would have made sense for them to put somebody other than Melissa over in this match. And the reason I say that is if the intention was to bring Melissa back, which apparently it wasn't, because to this day I don't think she's ever been back in Femme Fatales again, to my knowledge.
You are way, way, way off.
Oh, well then, honestly, I don't know what...
Way off.
Okay, to my knowledge, for the shows that I watched, she hasn't been back in Femme Fatales, because I don't think she was at 6 or 7.
You'd probably be right about that.
Well, that was the point that I was raising, because I haven't watched, I told you this earlier, I haven't watched anything past Volume 7 for Femme Fatale. But,
forgot about that. Sorry.
Back to what I was saying there. If you were going to bring Melissa back, then you should, if you're planning on bringing Melissa back down the road, then you should have put somebody else over here and then given Melissa a built-in return match to come in there. And I honestly think the person to go with here might have been Mary Lee Rose.
Yeah, between, if you were to have left it between Shanae, and I don't know why I hate saying that name, and Mary Lee Rose, there was more behind Mary Lee, I think. Just between the 2 of them.
There are a few female workers who I genuinely dislike watching. Obviously, we're about to touch on one of them. But another one's actually in this match. I have never enjoyed anything I've seen from Shanae. Not a single match of hers have I liked.
Makes two of us.
Yeah, so, I mean, call that a little bit of a bias creeping in there as far as giving Mary Lee the win here. You can say that if you want to. Frankly, you're more entitled to do so. My point being, as far as this particular match goes, is if the intention was to use Melissa again in the future, then it wouldn't have been the worst idea to have Mary Lee Rose sneak a victory here, and possibly even pinning Melissa to get it by rolling her up for the finish. I wouldn't have had Melissa pinned cleanly with a finishing move in the center of the ring, but I think if you want to establish your talent to your local fans there, the best way to do that would have been to have one of them pin Melissa, even if it was kind of a cheap pinfall.
I almost feel like much with Danger, I almost wonder if this was just meant to be a feature match. Because let's face it here, Femme Fatales doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot in terms of storylines and things like that, especially here because you're still relatively early. I won't say anything major, that would ruin your viewership of it. Later on, they start to get more into stories and things like that. But at this point, I think this is meant to be nothing more than a feature match to give Melissa the win.
And you might be right with that. It might be, like I said earlier, it might be an excuse to put Melissa on your show in order to have that as a selling point. Like or dislike with the fact that she finished with the reality check.
A what?
Reality check. It's what her trainer called it. We more commonly know it as the air raid crash, but Michael Modest called it the reality check.
No, I have no issues with I think in this case, if you can't believe I'm about to say this, but I think the quality of talent did not warrant using the kudo driver.
There's a really mean comment there that I'm not going to make.
Oh, just make it.
Nope. This is mean even by my standards, so I'm going to keep that one to myself. Talk to me when we're off the air.
Oh, boy. Wait, is it mean towards me?
No, it's mean towards one of the participants, and that's why I'm not going to make it, because I don't want to make any enemies.
I think I know where you're going with that anyway. But yeah, I just, like I said, personally, I think this was just meant to be a feature match and give Melissa the win at the expense of two heels. I mean, let's face it, and I think this is kind of a company that's actually somewhat dominated by heels. So, and this is well known that I'm not the world's biggest fan of Melissa anymore. But in this case, yeah, I don't really have an issue with her because in this case, it's kind of, like we said, the quality of the talent that she had. If she had lost to one of them, it probably would have brought her down more than it would have brought them up.
It seems like a fair assessment to me.
Yeah. So, but let's.
All right. First half main event time, and this is actually a match I'm looking forward to discussing.
Yeah, this should be a mighty interesting one. It is a street fight in which Cat Power takes on PJ Rush Rosemary. Or more specifically, in this case, well, it depends on where you look. If you look at the match graphics, PJ Tyler. If you listen to the intro, Courtney Rush. Now she's known as Rosemary in TNA, but I think at this point she had made the full switch to Courtney Rush.
And she's PJ Courtney Rush Tyler.
Sure. PJ Tyler Rush.
Courtney Tyler Rush. How's that?
Okay.
We'll get rid of the PJ. We'll keep the Courtney Rush. All right, anyways, I understand where you're about to come from in regards to us talking about this match earlier as far as my bias here. And yes, there is going to be a bit of a bias sneaking in here because I am a really big fan of one of the women in this match. And it has honestly not a whole lot to do with her in-ring ability.
Which isn't bad, let's be honest.
No, because I'm sure we all have those wrestlers, those female wrestlers, for guys, for females, their male counterparts and stuff, who we generally enjoy watching their matches just because of the eye candy factor of it. I don't know what it is about her, but I have always been a huge fan of Cat Power's walk. The fact that she comes out to a Tool song increases my approval of her even that much more.
Fair enough.
That's not to say that I'm not a fan of Courtney Rush, because in the time that I saw her, and my first exposure to Courtney Rush was actually as PJ Tyler in Femme Fatales before she came to Shimmer and before I started watching any of the other promotions that she had worked for. But when I started getting these Femme Fatales DVDs, PJ Tyler was my first exposure to her, but I knew the name Courtney Rush, I knew what she looked like, and I knew that it was Courtney Rush, just an earlier incarnation of it. And I was impressed by her work inside of Femme Fatales here. And this particular match, both of these women stood out to me as quite easily being the best thing on the show thus far.
Yeah, and quite frankly, anyone who tries to say otherwise is lying.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with there's a genuine storyline, and there you could feel genuine discomfort between the two of them against each other there. Like, it seemed like they were legitimately out to hurt each other in this street fight, you know? It's a very aggressive match.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming with that. And yeah, it just they seem to have an absolute hatred for each other going into this match. So it made everything more believable, at least to me. And they, on Cat Power's side at least, you know, you have the unofficial rule for a street fight, and that is you show up in straight clothes. Courtney somewhat did with the top, but I think she still wore normal gear underneath, whereas Cat Power showed up actually in almost like army threads almost, at least with her pants, and I think she just had a t-shirt on. There's one thing that drove me nuts about this match, though. One thing. It has to do with Cat Power, and I'm sorry. But
I'm listening.
During the match, and it had to be fairly early on because it became very apparent to me for about 2/3 of the damn match. At some point, I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know what happened to cause it, but Cat Power ended up with a pretty decent, probably about an 8-inch wide cut in her pants. And it also made it very apparent that she is wearing some very, very tight pants because the thing just kept opening and opening and opening to where I was legitimately afraid that at one point, if she had bent the wrong way or something, that the entire leg was just going to come off. So just go with normal fitting blue jeans, maybe next time. Don't wear such tight-fitting clothes, especially when you're in a fight that you're going to go all around the building. And do that, they did. They beat the hell out of each other. You know, they used chairs. I'm pretty sure they took out a fan or two. They definitely took out a security guard or two. And they just went all over the building, used the, not the concession, the souvenir tables and everything. And they had, you know, a very good, very long, I believe this was one of, if not the longest match on this show. It was at the very least the second longest. And they just beat the high holy hell out of each other. And then the finish would shock the hell out of me.
The main event was longer. Main event was 21.5. Main event was 21.5. Kat and Courtney won 18:46. No, I agree. I've never seen that finish done by women.
Because even it got to the point, and I'll openly admit, yes, I'm friends with Courtney Rush on Facebook. That even, like, I made a post about that. I was like, I've never seen a female do that, and didn't even, like, I had never seen Courtney do that. I had never seen anybody ever do that. And she goes, yeah, we kind of pulled it out from time to time. So I was like, yeah, it's a pretty big deal to have to pull that out. Because, I mean, and that's not me trying to say, boy, I have to tread lightly here. I am in no way trying to say, oh, you know, women shouldn't do that, women can't do that, blah, 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 woo, woo, woo. Screw all of that. No matter all the women's wrestling I've watched, I just have never seen anybody, any female wrestler, pull that off. That's my entire point to that. So to see a female wrestler pull that off was pretty damn awesome.
To my knowledge, I don't know that I've seen a female wrestler use it since either.
I don't even know that I've seen Courtney Rush use it since.
And you've seen most of her heated rivalries in Shimmer. I mean, obviously, you're much further ahead in the product than I am. My general obsession with watching the shows in order getting the better of me in that regard, but...
Sorry.
Oh, no, you got a later start into the company than I did. I started watching with Volume 1, and it's been my kind of my mission that I would... kind of my mission that I would watch the shows from start to finish.
Yeah. But yeah, to see Courtney Rush pull out the Van Terminator, I mean, if you really want to get technical about the coast to coast, is a pretty damn impressive thing.
All right, I'm gonna stop you right there because this is something that actually irks me. It was the Van Terminator first.
Okay, and maybe there's people that don't watch ECW or anything, only watch WWE. Well, if they only watch WWE, then they're probably not listening to us. But be that as it may, some people notice I actually call it the Coast to Coast more than I call it the Van Terminator.
Yes, but having just recently watched the Rob Van Dam One of a Kind DVD, Van Dam actually gets irritated that more people know it as the Coast to Coast than know it as the Van Terminator, because the move was his creation.
But I didn't know that in 1999, or I didn't know that in 2001 when I was 10 years old watching WrestleMania 17.
Quit being such a youngin', will you? Jesus.
Oh, bite me.
Yeah. Anyways.
Moving on.
So it's intermission here, so we're going to take a brief intermission from the show discussing ourselves. I actually turned off the Sunday night game.
My picks win, and what do I care?
22-0.
Yep. Also, it looks like the Broncos finally won in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, because that game didn't take forever or anything. Jesus.
That's now 2 weeks that Tampa has had a 1 week weather delay, or 1 hour weather delay.
That's 2 weeks in a row Tampa's had a 1 hour weather delay. Word of the wise to our friends in Tampa Bay, build them a closed roof stadium.
Just saying.
All right, and now that we've discussed football briefly, we'll talk baseball playoffs at the end because I want to do some predictions before the playoffs actually start. We'll do that at the end of the show when nobody else cares. So that way, if they want to listen to our predictions, they can. If they don't, they can just end the episode. But now we go into the second half of the show. Do we have to start with this match? Do we really have to? Can we skip it? Can we please?
You're asking the wrong person because you know damn well I'll say yes, we can skip it.
You know what the sad part is? You know what the worst part of it is, too, for this match for me is I don't like her opponent either. I'm not a fan of her opponent either.
Yeah, this is good. This is, man. At least at least. The last time we had to cover an Anna Minoushka match, at least last time her opponent was Awesome Cold.
Yes, who, as you may or may not be aware of, is awesome. It says so in her name.
She's also amazing. That's so in her own.
Exactly.
How much does she weigh?
None of your damn business.
Right. Forgot about that. Anyway. In this case, though, it's Anna Minoushka with Madmoiselle Rachelle versus Mistress Belmont.
Just want to say that Anna Minoushka may be the bane of the existence of this very show at this point.
Want to know the real problem?
Oh, boy.
The major problem that I have?
Mm-hmm.
She may be the bane of existence of this show, but she might still be the better worker in this match.
Gah! Nice. All right. I have never done this for any match that we've actually reviewed a show for, but I'm going to go ahead and do this now. If you do decide to go out and buy this show, and there are several very worthwhile matches to watch on this show, the Melissa three-way, even though it's a feature match, hey, I'm a Melissa fan. Of course, I'm going to recommend it. Cat Power and Courtney Tyler Rush is really good, and there's a lot of emotion invested into a match that had a relatively short build-up in Femme Fatales, but I assume a longer build-up over the course of NCW leading to this show. The main event is Hamada LuFisto. What could go wrong?
I'll even give credit to Mercedes. I would still also give credit to Mercedes and Calamity, but we'll get to that next.
Do yourself a favor if you do decide to pick up the show at our recommendation, because overall I am going to recommend this show. I already told you how long the match was. About 6 minutes and 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. It is 6 minutes and 10 seconds of your life that you will never get back. Don't waste your time.
And
even the manager screws up spearing.
Okay. It's pretty obvious where we're going to go when we get to our big finish. I don't think there's really any question. So I'll ask you this now.
Uh-huh.
This is our... Give me 1 second. This is our 21st formal episode on W2M. We had, I believe, 10 normal episodes on our own network. I actually mean it when I'm asking this. Is this the worst match we've covered?
Oh, boy. It's certainly up there.
I was going to say, or is it at least damn close?
No, it's definitely in contention, because we do the thing, we used to do the thing here on the W2M one since we started. I'd like to start it over of us going back and picking up our star reviews and possibly posting them on the W2M network website, the W2Mnet.com, I believe, is the website. You would know that better than I. Okay.
Yes, Sean?
I don't think Sean's with us right now, so let's go ahead and continue what we were discussing. But
Thank you, Sean.
I got it right. Go me. Anywho, I would like to continue doing the star ratings that we used to do on the Facebook page, because now we can reach a broader audience with them, and we can link to the star ratings on the Facebook page as well to still post them there too. But God, it's certainly got to be up there.
I think I'm pretty sure that we actually named Kong versus Anna when we covered Femme Fatale 4 last year on our old network. I'm pretty sure we called that the worst match on that card, too.
Anna Minoushka may end up becoming the very first person, male or female, to have 2 worst match of the nights to her credit. And I use the term credit extremely loosely in this particular instance.
She would get a Lifetime Achievement Award that you don't want.
It's like rain on her wedding day.
It's not that ironic.
It's that free advice that you just didn't take. I'd rather quote Alanis Morissette than talk about Anna Minoushka anymore. No, in seriousness though, in regards to the question that you asked, as far as is this the worst match, I'm almost certain there's been 1 or 2 other matches since we started tracking our star ratings that have gutted out. Is this worse than them? I would have to go back and watch those other 2 matches. Because I actually did go back and rewatch this show for the purpose of doing this review, because it had been probably about a year or so since I had watched it. And this match was just as bad on the second viewing as it was on the first. And I knew going in that it was going to be crap, and it didn't even reach that level of expectation.
Yeah, it just, This was just, I wanted to skip it when I was watching it, but it was kind of one of those things where just put the hammer down and just get through it, and I still barely got through it. Just
you know what the problem is?
She's Anna Minoushka. That's the problem.
No, you want to know what the real problem is here? Like, and this is my honest opinion about this here. It's like, it's not even like car crash bad where it's just so awful that you can't help but not watch. It's just sucky enough that you don't even want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's one of those things where the match ends, and of course Anna wins. And I'm pretty sure she's undefeated and never got a title shot. Thank God.
There's a very crude comment about somebody with a booker there that I'm just not going to make. We're going to go ahead and move on.
Yeah, let's just get the hell past this, please.
Just real quick here, as far as this whole situation goes, though, the one last thing before we do move on here in this regard, though. Will you agree with me in that some of the other crap matches that we've covered on this show, and believe me, we've had our fair share of complete and total clusterfricks. Mason Beck versus Sabu from AAW's Epic immediately springs to mind, because that match was a clusterfrick and a half.
How about Bushwhackers versus the Beverly Brothers from the 92 Rumble?
Those matches have that car crash ability to them, and that they're so bad that they're watchable, though. Like, you find yourself watching to see just how badly they'll screw things up next. It's almost
what happens.
It's almost a Matthew Gregg-ish style of watching a DVD for us. And for those of you who don't know, Matthew Gregg is the guy behind Botchamania. You're intentionally watching a match to see just how nicely they managed to f*** things up.
Yeah, that's almost the only way that you can go through watching. Unfortunately, for me at least, having watched more of the Femme Fatale show, that's kind of how I feel towards, because she's not out of the woods here either. But that's how I feel watching some Mistress Belmont matches, just because.
That's how I feel watching.
She's in a storyline where she's hitting on a referee.
That's how I feel watching most Mistress Belmont matches, if we're being entirely honest.
Where the hell have you seen her besides Femme Fatale?
I own episodes 1 through 7, which means I have at least 7 matches for her.
Oh. But it's just one of the things of you finish watching it and just say never again. That's how I feel about this. I never want to watch this match again. I'll watch this DVD again, but I'll never watch that match again.
No, this is one of those things where if you're listening to the show and trying to figure out if you should buy this show or not, you should, and then you should just hit the fast forward button or the next chapter button on your remote, whichever one you find quicker, and go right straight through it and on to the next match. Speaking of that next match,
real quick, with this DVD, next chapter is not an option.
Or then fast forward to the end of the chapter.
Yeah. I don't know why, but next chapter skip is not an option on this. Everything's under a title video rather than one show as a chapter. Everything's its own section, so you can't skip it.
Well, then fast forward to it and then wait till it clicks over to the next match for you. Regardless, do yourself a favor and don't waste your time.
Yeah, just skip it. Moving on. Skipping past that match, thank God.
Here's the nicest way I can put this, Patrick. You ready?
Yep.
We deal with this so they don't have to.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. So you know what? You, the listener, you are welcome. You're welcome for what we do to ourselves for you. Listen to our show, damn it.
I think we've officially made our point here. Let's move on.
Yeah. Anyway. What the hell is the next match? Oh, it's Mercedes Martinez versus Calamity.
Yeah, it's Mercedes. Anna will do that to you. Anna, Minoushka, F this crap.
Our next match, our sub-main event, our actual sub-main event, thank God.
Could you imagine if we would have put Anna and Belmont ahead of this on the card format?
Oh, God.
Heads would have rolled.
Oh. Anyway, our next match, thank God. Talk about a refresher. I almost feel sorry for these two. I feel sorry for Mercedes Martinez and Calamity. I really do. Because they had to follow that.
No,
they had to follow that.
No, that's the exact reason I don't feel sorry for them, because what they had to follow was that. That bar is really, really low.
But at the same time, half of that crowd probably went to go to steal a quote from one of my favorite promo men ever. I'm going to take a leak. This girl sucks. So Mercedes and Calamity probably had to go out and do their match in front of half of a crowd. And had to try and get that crowd back into that show, not only for their match, but they had to do that leading up to the main event.
I would argue that most of the crowd had already used the restroom and gotten back to their seat through the duration of the 6 minutes that Anna Minoushka was in the ring, so I think they would have been okay.
Well, could have made for a long line, though.
Okay, that's fair. I won't disagree with that.
Intermission at the Berwyn Eagles Club for Shimmer is pretty damn long, but they're still hell of a wait.
All right, I think we're done ragging on Anna for now. We'll get more ragging in a little bit later on in the DVD, but for now, let's go ahead and give Calamity and Mercedes the focus that they deserve there. Agree or disagree here, because I'm about to make a very bold statement.
Okay.
Including LuFisto, Calamity is the biggest star to come out of Femme Fatales.
No. Second biggest, but not including LuFisto. I would still give it. I would still give it to. I understand where you're going with that, but I would still give it to LuFisto with an asterisk of if Calamity hadn't cut her career short, I think she could have been a bigger star than LuFisto, but LuFisto is the bigger star because Calamity kind of cut her career pretty short. I think she would end up finishing up wrestling in sometime in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, because I think I still had my student radio show when she retired, because we talked about it on that. I think if she was still wrestling today, Calamity would have been a bigger star. But because she finished her career in 2013, no, it's LuFisto.
I will make another statement here too, and actually, I don't think it's LuFisto or Calamity either. I actually think the biggest star to come off of this show this far is probably Courtney Rush.
I thought you were talking like strictly Montreal.
No, I mean in general making her name, because I know Calamity did make her way down to Shimmer eventually, correct?
Yeah.
I haven't actually reached the point that she's made it to Shimmer yet, to my knowledge, I don't think.
I think you won't reach that until I start showing up.
So late 40s, early 50s?
Yeah. Like
all right.
The very latest. My first volume was 49, so.
Yeah, I just finished 38, so I'm still a ways away from that. But I would argue that as far as the women involved on this show, excluding LuFisto, and I guess to a degree excluding Melissa as well, because Melissa's had way more mainstream success than Courtney has. But Melissa's not Canadian. Melissa's from California. Of the Canadian talent on this show, I think Courtney Rush is probably the biggest star, because she's had far more exposure in her career than LuFisto has.
But I will say this as well. If she wasn't injured and was on the show in the match that she was advertised for, I'd make an argument for Cherry Bomb. Obviously, though, she's excluded because she ended up not being on the show. But I'd make an argument that would be between Courtney Rush and Cherry Bomb.
Well, I think you could definitely make that argument, since Cherry Bomb is in the same location that Courtney Rush is now, even though neither of them has the same name that they had for this particular show. As you mentioned, Courtney Rush is Rosemary in Decay in TNA now, and if I'm not mistaken, Cherry Bomb is Allie, I believe.
Correct.
Maria's assistant, I think, is Cherry Bomb, because I know her husband is in TNA as well. That would be the former Pepper Parks. I think he's known as Braxton Sutter.
I wouldn't know the new name, but you're dead on. There you go.
And that's Cherry Bomb / Allie's husband.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want to look at all the talent, I mean, independent circuit, you could make an argument and say Melissa. Damn it, twice in 5 minutes. Melissa or Mercedes in terms of independent and mainstream. Out of everyone that specifically wrestled on this card, yeah, you can make an argument that it was Rosemary, although Melissa would still be up there. Because of Raisha Saeed, Alyssa Flash, now Mariposa, to anyone that doesn't know that, oops.
Yeah, no, I would say Melissa's a little bit higher than Courtney for that very reason in the fact that she's had national exposure on 3 different national promotions.
2.
3.
2.
3. She's wrestled for Ring of Honor as well, sir.
Oh. Wasn't that before they went national?
You might be right about that, although I wouldn't be surprised. Well, I guess she couldn't do Women of Honor now that she has the contract with Lucha Underground.
So ha. But I would probably just stick with TNA and Lucha Underground for her, because she was Alyssa Flash and Raisha Saeed in TNA. So that's where I was going with that. But let's get back into this match. Yeah, I do wish Calamity had kept her career going, because especially like you said, we talked earlier about Sweet Cherry and the fact that she and Calamity were both trainees under our current international champion at this point, LuFisto.
Minor spoiler alert. I don't know. Just real quick here, minor spoiler alert. One of those 2 women would actually take the NCW International title off of LuFisto.
True. We won't get into that. But
I won't say, but one of them does.
I think it's going to become obvious the more we talk about this match, because it seems to me by this point, they may have finished at the same time. I don't actually know. But Calamity just seemed leaps and bounds ahead of Sweet Cherry.
Oh, 1,000% agree with that. Everything Calamity did in the ring was smoother. Everything she did as far as her character work was smoother. Her look was better. And I'm not just even talking from an attractiveness scale, although Calamity was a very attractive woman as well. I mean the fact that her ring gear and everything like that, all of her movements with the character, it all made sense for what she was doing. Now, could the argument be made that it's easier to be a heel in this regard? And that Calamity had that advantage over Sweet Cherry in the fact that Calamity was a heel, whereas Sweet Cherry was a babyface?
The argument could be made, considering the fact that, I mean, and I'm not even a wrestler, and I've always heard this, that one of the hardest things to do in wrestling is to be a babyface. It's much easier to be a heel, and usually more fun. The one thing I will say about Calamity that I don't like, there's one thing about her I don't like. Her finisher. Her finisher name, more specifically.
Are you referring to the whiplash?
No.
Because it wasn't her finisher, the fireman's carry into the Michinoku driver?
Yes. You know what she called it?
I don't know what she calls it, but I know that move is whiplash from last LaRue.
Yeah, no. She called it the Calamityville Horror Driver.
Calamityville Horror is actually really funny. Adding the word driver to the end kind of takes away from the creativity.
I'm sorry, but to me the whole thing is just...
Can I point out the fact that may actually be a tribute to ECW? Do you remember Chris Shetty?
Yes.
His finishing move was the fireman's carry Michinoku driver, and he called it Amityville Horror.
I mean, maybe, but I think it just happened to be the use of her name and Amity.
No. To be fair, he was built from Amityville, New York, so that might be why. But no, yeah. I disagree. I think Calamityville Horror works perfectly for that move. I think you're splitting hairs.
And I said it was one thing. Other than that, everything else. I mean, and as far as this match, I mean, you know, we said Rush and Cat Power beat the hell out of each other in their match. Calamity and Mercedes, although I've never known of a Mercedes Martinez match where she didn't beat the hell out of her opponent, but they did it again here. And I mean, you could tell that there were still big things ahead for both of these wrestlers.
I mean, Mercedes was kind of already starting to make her mark known. Like she had the major run in Shimmer at this point. She had the major thing going with. I believe she was already WSU champion at this point. I would imagine.
Hell, she may be close to losing it at this point.
To Jessica Havoc.
Yeah, and that goofy finish. But that's a whole different show.
Yes, we'll have to do a Women's Superstars Uncensored DVD down the road. Don't let the name fool you. For the most part, it's actually a legitimate promotion.
Yeah, unlike other ones.
Although I can give you two words that would spit right in the face of what I just said there, but we'll save that for another time. Rick is out. All right, anyways. Back to this match here. Yeah, I was going to say there, you mentioned the fact that that this match was really hard hitting there. I think that kind of goes with the territory as far as the Mercedes Martinez match goes. Like, if you see Martinez on the card anywhere, you know that she's going to beat the crap out of somebody. It just so happens she was in the ring with somebody like Calamity who wasn't afraid to take it and dish it right back.
Exactly, and that makes for a very, very stiff match in this case, and an argument could be made for probably one of the best matches of the night, if not for two other matches on here.
Strongly dislike the length of this match, and the fact that it was only almost 9 minutes. Completely disagree with that. I think it did a disservice to both of these women.
Yeah, this was one of them. The street fight, the length was fine. The main event, the length was fine. This one, painfully too short. Way too short, especially when we're used to a lot of Mercedes Martinez matches going no less than 15 minutes. For a Mercedes match to go less than 10 is unthinkable almost.
Not to mention, let's look at the match that we were trashing the bejesus out of right before it there. They gave Minoushka and Mistress Belmont almost 7 minutes. Or, 6:13. So the difference in time between those two matches is 2 minutes.
Yeah. This one definitely deserved more.
You ready for this, Patrick? And this is going to upset you. That Caroline and Karen Brooks match?
Yes.
5 seconds shorter than Martinez and Calamity.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
They gave... And don't get me wrong, I understand the importance of local talent on shows and wanting to build up your local talents and wanting to give them showtime and ring time in front of large crowds because they knew that this show was going to draw because of some of the names that they had advertised for it. Melissa, Allison, Mercedes, LuFisto, Hamada. You knew the show was going to draw. But of all of your features, it's clearly it's Mercedes that gets the short end of the time stick here. Because Allison's match with Anastasia Ivy goes a little over 10 minutes.
So are you telling me that Mercedes Martinez not only doesn't have, among one of the longer matches, does she actually have one of the shorter matches on this show?
I just put the notebook away. Give me 1 second. Let me pull it back up.
All right. We should have expected this question. But... The issue mentions stuff.
Your phone just crapped out on you again. Find wherever you were and stay there. Third shortest. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, out of the 8 matches on the main card, it is 5th in terms of length.
Boy, it's the 4th shortest.
Main event. Street fight, 3-way, danger, this match, Caroline, Karen, Minoushka, and Belmont, and then the opener was 3 seconds shorter than Minoushka and Belmont.
I feel sorry for Sweet Cherry and Kelly Skater. Anyway, there is one funny moment, though, during this match, but I think it actually legitimately pissed off Mercedes, in which she has Calamity in the corner, and she's going for... I don't know what you want to call it. It's the boot to the corner. If you really want to be a WWE fan, the Broski boot. I'm not calling it that, though. I call it the McGage boot. LuFisto also does it.
That would be a legitimate Japanese businesswoman kick.
That's not that.
No, I know it's not an actual Yakuza. It's a corner trap. It's a corner trap mafia kick. I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the face wash.
Yeah, Mercedes was going for the face wash. She went to one corner. She was going to the next corner. It's the ropes, and the referee is completely in the way. And it looked like it actually pissed her off to the point that she just stops right where she was, taps him on the shoulder, and just, as soon as he turns around, she just goes, move! And then goes and does her face wash. But it actually looked like it legitimately pissed her off that he was in the way of her trying to do a face wash.
Well, as your friend Dave Prazak would tell you, someone had a dirty face and she was trying to remedy it.
Correct.
Clearly the referee did not get the message.
Yes, that Mercedes owns a face washing service.
Absolutely. First one free, actually.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it may come with a few red marks on your chest or face from Mercedes' job.
You very quickly find out what size wrestling shoes she wears. Anyways, all right, moving on. No, I agree with you in the fact that as we were talking about, criminally short but incredibly physical, which I think kind of makes up a little bit for the shortness. Major disservice to both women, though, by only giving them almost 9 minutes. It seemed like the wrong placement on this card. If anything, the triple threat should have been 9 minutes, and then you could have given 12 or 13 minutes to Mercedes and Calamity.
Yeah, I could absolutely, I 100% agree with you. Flip the match time on this and the triple threat. Once again, This was not like Mercedes, Melissa going against two people that, let's face it, were out of her league. This is somebody who Calamity may not have been in Mercedes' league yet, but she was getting there, and she was getting to there pretty damn fast. She absolutely could have held her own end for a 12 to 15 minute match. I would say that without a doubt.
Oh, no doubt in my mind either. We both made it very well known here on this particular episode that we really enjoyed Calamity's ring work. We just wish there was more of it over the course of her career.
Yeah. So, in the end,
I have a comparison for you. I don't know how much WCW you have and haven't watched over the years. You could almost consider Calamity a female Blitzkrieg, in that she shined for pretty much the entirety of the time she was around, but she didn't stay long enough to leave a lasting impact.
I can see where you're coming from with that. I would have to see more Blitzkrieg stuff. I've seen very little of it.
Well, he was more of a high flyer, but I mean in terms of just in general, as far as like in terms of longevity and actual ability.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd have to see more, but I can, from what I remember seeing, I can understand where you're coming with that, no doubt. But shall we move on?
Main event time.
Indeed it is. Main event time, an international dream match for the NCW Femme Fatales International Championship. As the champion, LuFisto, in her first title defense, I'm pretty sure.
Well, she won it in Volume 4. That's not to say she didn't defend it. I was going to say, that's not to say she didn't defend it in NCW itself, but definitely her first defense on a Femme Fatale show.
That's exactly where I was taking that, jackass. That's exactly what I meant. Okay, with what I'm pretty sure is her first overall defense, and it's definitely her first defense at a Femme Fatale show, LuFisto takes on, let's face it, the Japanese icon, Ayako Hamada.
You could argue Mexican icon as well. She's just as famous for her work in Mexico as she was for her work in Japan. Similar to her father in that regard, honestly. For those of you who don't know, and if you don't, yeah, really. Ayako Hamada would be the daughter of the famous Gran Hamada, he of the ECW barely legal Japanese six-man tag match.
The Michinoku Pro six-man?
Yes, that's what I said. The barely legal Japanese six-man tag match.
Yeah. And I just said that it was because all six of them were from Michinoku Pro.
Yes, and Pro, Taka's company.
Yes.
That's right, people. Taka Michinoku used to own a wrestling company.
This is very true. And now he wrestles for DDT.
Well, his tag team partner is still pay-per-view #1 announcer.
Yeah, and his commentary announcer will choppy your... never mind.
Yeah, let's get back to the actual reason we're on this show here. It's main event time. First time meeting, to my knowledge.
Well, if it's being advertised as a dream match, I'd almost hope it was their first time.
It's very rare that you have a Joshi in the ring, and she's in the ring with somebody who actually hits harder than she does.
Yeah, because let's face it, and this is actually like back-to-back matches of two people facing off who can beat the ever-loving hell out of you. Mercedes and Calamity in the last match, and now you've got Ayako Hamada and LuFisto, and the both of them can whip your ass easily.
I would argue that these four women, the four women that we just mentioned there, Mercedes, Calamity, LuFisto, Hamada, is about as close to strong style as we get out of Japanese women, other than Kong, who's kind of a gaikin.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from with that one. Real quick, before we even get into the match, I must say I did like the fact that they did. I don't want to call it a ritual, but they had like a little small ceremony before the match itself, presenting flowers to both people and actually having a ring boy essentially holding up their respective flags behind them during the introductions. I did like the whole. It made it feel like it was a big fight feel. Not that I don't even think you needed that for it to feel like a big fight feel, but I did like that aspect to it. Just added a little bit more to the match that already was huge anyway.
Well, I think that was done more so for Hamada than it was done for LuFisto, because it's kind of Japanese tradition for main event matches that you have the presentations for those kind of things like that. You have the presentations of flags, you have the presentations of gifts towards the wrestlers and stuff like that. Because I know I've seen a couple of Japanese women's shows where the participants are given flowers before the match there, and it's something that NXT actually took a cue off of as well. If you recall, after the Takeover Brooklyn, or was it the main event Iron Woman match between Bayley and Sasha Banks? I know it was one of them that Triple H came out and both of the women were presented with flowers and stuff for their performance in that match.
Or you could even say well, if you're going specifically woman and female, then yeah. I was thinking of one other match, but that wasn't a female match.
Are you referring to Balor and Owens from the Beast in the East pay-per-view?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's out of respect to Japanese culture is why they did it, though. That's the point that I'm making.
Well, you're dismissing LuFisto. Remember, she is from Montreal, Japan. Hey, that's her words, not mine. You can't get mad at me for that.
I'm pretty sure that's like an off-ramp off of like the Tokyo Interstate is how you get there.
I wonder if it's the same interstate to get to Bombay, Michigan.
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, and I mean, what in the hell would you expect from, Ayako Hamada versus LuFisto? Of course, this match is going to be, freaking awesome, and once again, incredibly stiff. They smack the hell out of each other. It becomes pretty apparent, though, that this was meant to be a one-time thing. The one thing that I didn't like about this, and obviously it's probably much more of a timing thing, but the fact that it was LuFisto's first title defense at a Femme Fatales show, to me, took most of the intrigue away and almost automatically told me that LuFisto was going to win this match. It was just a matter of when, where, and how long was it going to take to get there.
Yeah, suspension of disbelief of her dropping the title in her first defense in her home country was non-existent. But I don't think you watch this match I don't think you watch this going into it looking at it as hoping LuFisto loses the title. I think you'd watch this match going into it the exact same way that we just talked about a few seconds ago, that it's two of arguably at this point the best women's workers in the world beating the absolute dog crap out of each other.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, Hamada, a world-renowned name, and many consider it to be one of, if not the best knockout that TNA ever had. In kind of a drop ball situation there. But I think this was the kind of match that would bring in more eyes to the company. And you absolutely watch this for the spectacle of it. You're seeing two, big-time players having a big time. It's the longest match here. And they just absolutely, go to work. And, they had a fantastic match. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And, we alluded to it earlier and talked about it, but you had LuFisto in the end, like I just mentioned, like I said, kind of a suspension of disbelief here. In the end, LuFisto does win with you want to go so far as to call it a modified burning hammer?
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with the whole head droppery nature of the move in general, though. I'm of the opinion that move should not be used at all, period.
Uh-oh. Seems like we lost Terry there for a minute. You there? Oh. Yeah, apparently not. But, I mean, yeah, dropping somebody on their head, obviously isn't a fun thing here, as I'm kind of stalling for time. As we mentioned, at the previous show, LuFisto had beaten Portia Perez, but she almost legitimately dropped Portia Perez on her head, and obviously that wouldn't be known at the time that Portia would end up having to retire due to neck issues, which will happen at a shimmer, and I won't say where, in case Harry happens to listen to this part. But LuFisto does pick up the win, but even getting there, they still did have a hell of a match.
When did I drop? Yeah, when did I drop?
I mean, we were still talking. You mentioned that you weren't a fan of the head droppiness of the burning hammer, and then you pretty much cut off right after that.
All right. Well, what I said after I cut off as far as that move goes is, in regards to the burning hammer, the original version of it, the one that's most particularly known, and I do believe that would be the one that was created by Kenta Kobashi, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're right.
Which is the inverted torture rack, which is the torture rack into the inverted Death Valley driver, which does completely head drop. I don't care for that version of the move because I feel like it's too risky for what the move does. Similar to a move like the Tombstone that I'm not a fan of as well because of the fact that that move is in its very nature very head droppy. That being said, the way that LuFisto hit it against Hamada for this particular match increased the safety level of it. So I guess to an extent I was more okay with the version that LuFisto hit here than I am with the original version that is popularized by Kenta Kobashi.
Yeah, and when you after you dropped, I had mentioned the fact that just one show before, and I do almost wonder if that was done at the insistence of LuFisto because of the fact that she pretty much dropped Portia Perez on her head at the previous show. You know, obviously at that time it wouldn't have been known that Portia was going to retire, 4 or 5 years later due to neck issues. But I almost wonder if LuFisto said, "Hey, we're going to hit my finisher, but I'm not going to fully dump you on your head."
And I think that that's something that, honestly, given the tradition in regards to Hamada as far as her wrestling pedigree and stuff, and I don't mean that in terms of the move, I mean that in terms of her whole background with the fact that her father is who he is, and she's been wrestling for as long as she does. I don't know if she might have considered that kind of a disservice to herself there. Yes, if you watch the music video at the start of the show, you see the burning hammer that LuFisto hit on Portia, and she drops Portia, and I apologize for the language here, square on the top of her goddamn head. Like, square on the top of it.
Yeah.
It is one of the nastiest versions I have ever seen LuFisto hit.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
That being said, though, I think Hamada, given her reputation, probably would have been okay with taking a version of it when she got dumped, if not close to the same, somewhat similarly.
Yeah, because unfortunately, I don't actually know if Portia ended up having any immediate issues after that. Obviously, like I said, we would know later on that she would end up with issues that would force her to retire. But I don't know if she had to take any time off immediately after that, because like we said, she got dumped right on her head.
It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things where that kind of move there, it's just unnecessarily risky for what it accomplishes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I know I know that's not going to be a popular opinion because I know a lot of people are fans of like that head drop style, or that almost you could call it kind of strong style, the All Japan style back in the early '90s there. And I mean, to each their own there. I get really uncomfortable seeing that now, especially knowing the kind of damage that wrestlers have had with concussions and neck injuries over the course of the recent years. Real quick about Hamada. I wanted to have a quick discussion about Hamada here, and then we can go into the big finish.
Okay.
I have a bold statement that I want to make here, and you would be more familiar with this style than I am due to the fact of who all comes through Shimmer and stuff, and obviously I'm starting to get to see them myself here. I would go as far as to say Hamada might be the third most famous Japanese women's wrestler of all time.
Hang on. That'd be Aja Kong and who?
I actually did not have Kong listed as one of those two. I had my two would have been Mainami Toyota and Megumi Kudo.
Okay.
You could definitely put Aja Kong up there in that conversation, and I think the argument could possibly be made for Bull Nakano as well.
I wanted to say Bull Nakano, but I was, for some reason, like, fearing that I would sound like an ass and she wasn't Japanese or something.
No,
just another thing. Just another thing that would make me sound like an ass. Anyway, I would be hard pressed to say no. You know, I think if you did a top 5, Hamada without a doubt makes it. Top 3, I think it would be a little more of a discussion, but I think she could sneak in there.
To me, the most famous, in my opinion, I would argue that the most influential Japanese women's wrestler of all time is Minami Toyota.
I totally agree.
And then I would make the argument for Megumi Kudo as well, just because of the fact that her move became so widely known, and it was known as the Kudo driver until it got its incarnations in the States as the Vertebreaker or the Cop Killer.
And if you talk to certain wrestlers from Shimmer, they still call it the Kudo driver.
Because that's what it was originally. It was Megumi Kudo's Kudo driver. So I think the argument can most certainly be made for both of them. I completely spaced on Aja Kong. I would argue that Kong would probably have to be up there as well, just due to the weight that her name carries. And one of these days, what I think we're going to have to do here, what I would like to do is I'd like to see if I can't get you a copy of Shikara's Joshi Mania, one of the nights of Shikara's Joshi Mania. And possibly we could do out this for a main event, Hamada versus Aja Kong.
I wouldn't say no.
We'll talk after we go off the air.
Alrighty. But yeah, I and especially with the fact that the reason, all right, Kudo has obviously the Kudo driver. The reason though that I would argue Hamada may actually be higher than her is because Kudo may have influenced more wrestlers, but that was more wrestlers watching almost strictly Japanese women's wrestling. In Hamada's case, she made her name known in 3 different countries. Mexico,
would absolutely
Japan,
agree with
and
that.
America.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Because for some reason, the Mexican company that she works for is completely escaping me.
I want to say it was CMLL.
I want to say yes, but I don't know for 100%. You had, everything that she did in Japan. You had, obviously, Shimmer and TNA in America. She
well,
made
amongst other
herself
things,
known.
amongst other places in America as well. Let's not forget she also worked for companies like Jersey All Pro in America as well too, because what they did JAPWWD, Jersey All Pro Wrestling Women's Division, and Hamada actually wrestles Rachel Summerlin on one of those shows.
Yeah, so you could make the argument at least that Hamada didn't just make her name in Japan. She made her name known legitimately around the world. So I would almost make the argument, and this is not, and I mean this with absolutely zero disrespect to her, but I possibly would make the argument that Hamada may actually be a bigger name than even Kudo.
What would you say your top three would be? Would you go what? Toyota, Aja, Hamada, or?
I
would be tempted.
I would probably go.
I was just going to say I would be tempted to put Hamada above Aja Kong, but I don't think I could put her above Minami Toyota.
I wouldn't. I probably would have gone Minami Toyota, Hamada, and then I'm going to cheat and go 3 and 3A of Kudo and Kong. Aja Kong, obviously.
Yeah, Aja, not Awesome. I mean, Awesome Kong made her name in Japan as well, but obviously she got her start in the States there, and we're specifically referring to Japanese women here. What about the ones that have come through, you see, this could be an extended conversation that we could get into in regards to this too, because we can talk about the Japanese women that have come through Shimmer as well recently, such as, as I just told you, I just watched Volume 38 of Shimmer. I just finished it off yesterday, and the main event of Volume 38 was Ayako Hamada versus Ayumi Kurihara. And then also on that show, you had Hiroyo Matsumoto, Misaki Ohata. Hold on, I know there was another one. Tomoko Nakagawa. Yeah, Tomoko Nakagawa. And then that's not counting a couple of the other ones that had previously appeared for Shimmer as well, up to that point. But it was like this next wave of Japanese to American talent there. And one of the things that I think Shimmer dropped the ball on there is when Shikara would bring Toyota in for a couple of their major shows there. I think that it would have benefited Prazak to work with Quack and figure out a way to bring Toyota into Shimmer as well.
I wouldn't know anything about that. I know the only thing that I'll say, and this is complete speculation, I know Dave has a pretty set limit on what he'll pay. So if Toyota wanted more, it may have just been, but that's absolutely 100% speculation.
Right.
I don't know why Minami Toyota has never, I mean, it took almost 10 years for Aja Kong to walk into the Berwyn Eagles Club. I won't. All right.
No, I genuinely did not know that Aja had appeared for Shimmer. I'm looking forward to seeing it now, actually.
It'll be a while.
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
Can you mute or pull the phone away from your ear for a second?
You're fine. Go ahead and say what you're going to say. I'll forget it by the time I watch it anyway.
All right. The only reason Aja Kong even walked into the Eagles Club, part of the reason was because Prazak practically begged and pleaded her just so Dave could have her for Nakagawa's retirement weekend.
You've already told me, you did tell me that before, that Aja Kong was there for that.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't feel so bad. Anyway, but yeah, I would absolutely agree with you on, if you're going strictly on a Japanese basis, without a doubt, Minami Toyota. If you're going on an international basis, I think Hamada could be put up there. I'll put it that way.
All right, that's fair. Well, I think Toyota started to get her name out there as well too. Like she was working for Mexican promotions as well, and obviously she has a pretty decent reach into the U.S. as well with Shikara too. I mean,
Yeah.
She's come over for King of Trios through Shikara multiple times.
That is true. As a matter of fact, she may have worked King of Trios this year.
And another one that I would, another thing that I would put up there for Toyota's credit as well was the fact that back in 2010, when the Bruderschaft des Graces was starting, the BDK, there was a tag match on one of the Shikara shows, and I think you would have a great interest in actually. It's Quack and Toyota against Claudio Castagnoli and Sarah Del Rey.
I wouldn't say no. But yeah, it's definitely there's no doubt here that Toyota would probably be among the most influential, if not the most influential, just above Hamada, definitely. Alrighty. Shall we finish that discussion and get to more discussing?
I believe this is about the time of the. I believe this is about the time of the podcast that we head into the big finish.
Indeed, it is. So, as we always do, the big finish, the best and worst match in our cash and our trash for the show. Why don't we get the obvious one out of the way? The supremely obvious one.
Let's do best and worst match first, and then we'll start with worst match because we've kind of already touched on it on multiple occasions.
Yeah, honestly, we always start with the best and worst match anyway, but sometimes we start with the best match. In this case, we'll go with the worst match. I don't think there's really any question as to what our worst match is, and it's obviously that three-way dance.
You shut your whore mouth.
Without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. Anna Minoushka and Mistress Belmont. Don't watch this match.
We have never had a match on this show where we have both actually physically came out and told you don't waste your time. That should tell you all you really need to know here.
It's a first time for everything.
I tell you.
Anyway, now that that's done with, how about you start us off in this case? What's your best match on this show?
The street fight. I enjoyed Hamada and LuFisto, but as you said, there was no semblance of emotional investment in that match. You knew Hamada was losing. The question was how. Whereas that street fight could have went to either of them. And I think the matches were of a similar. I think the matches were of a similar quality. Therefore, I went with the one I was more emotionally invested in, and that was Courtney Tyler Rush and Cat Power.
Courtney Tyler Rush, Mary?
You're going to be deleted here in about 30 seconds.
I'm only going to force your mind to decay. What about it? What are you going to do? Anyway. See, I want to say the street fight. And I'm stuck between two. And it's not the main event. I'll go with my secondary pick only because I don't want to seem like a repeat of you.
Mercedes and Calamity?
Yeah. The main thing, obviously, that does this match a huge disservice is the fact that it's so damn short.
Huge.
This should have absolutely had been 15 minutes, and instead it goes less than 10, which, like I said, it's kind of, Mercedes kind of needs a little time to warm up, usually a few minutes, but once she does, she always ends up having a hell of a match. But the problem is that warm-up period is like 5 minutes. Excuse me. Calamity absolutely more than held her own, and then this was just a case where they just beat the hell out of each other for less than 10 minutes. And I mean, you have 3 very, very good matches in here. And between this match and the main event, I was, once again, still more invested in this one because you could tell that Calamity was still on the rise. I was actually a little bit surprised that Mercedes ended up picking up the win. That might be like one small gripe is maybe you could have said the wrong person won with this one. But other than that, I mean, it was a great match to get there. Like I said, my only major sole gripe on this is the fact that it's too short. I wish they had been given more time. I think it would have surpassed even the street fight as the best match on this show.
So you're saying the best match on the show is actually the second best match on the show, but with more time it would have been the best match?
Yes.
It's an ass-backwards way to get to your best match of the night, Patrick.
I don't want to be like a repeat of you.
Since we both would have had the worst and best match.
I mean, sometimes it happens that way. Sometimes things specifically stand out on the show for all the right, or in a certain person's case, all the wrong reasons. Good Lord. Sorry, I switched over to the Sunday night game and lost my train of thought there for a second. For all the right or all the wrong reasons there, and it's blatantly obvious what the best and the worst are.
Yeah, it just... I really wish it had more time. If it had more time, then I would have absolutely zero doubt that it would have been the best match on the card, even over the street fight. I wish it had more time.
I don't know if I can agree with that.
If it had more time, it would have been better?
Yes. I don't know if I agree with that because I think you're doing a disservice to the actual hard work over the course of the almost 19 minutes Courtney and Kat went by saying that if this
gushed over the match. We gushed over the match already.
Right.
I think that it was a fantastic match.
But you're saying that if you're saying though, even though we talk so glowingly about the match, you're saying that if Mercedes and Calamity had just a little bit more, regardless of what we got from Courtney and Kat. That I don't agree with.
I don't mean to sound like I'm trying to do a disservice to Courtney and Kat. I really don't mean that at all. I thought they had a fantastic match, but I just feel like if there was this is one of those times where it's just I know I have an unpopular opinion where I don't feel like I'm cheating. I really don't. Well, I guess I kind of am though. I don't feel bad about it, but I think even over the disservice that I'm doing to Kat and Courtney, I think the biggest disservice here was the fact that the match was so damn short.
I won't argue that, but in my opinion, for as good of a match as Mercedes and Calamity had, its length has to be a factor into best match of the evening.
All right. Then if you're taking it for completely even footing, then yeah, it would be the street fight. It absolutely is the street fight, and I would.
I mean, the only reason I'm making this argument here is because when it comes to Courtney and Kat's performance there, they went almost double the time that Mercedes and Calamity's went, and they went at a pace that was arguably just as brutal as Mercedes and Calamity. And we both discussed during the course of our discussion of the match itself how we had never seen that finish from women before. So not only was it hard-hitting, not only was it physical, it was also innovative, which are three things that definitely help make it stand out to me as the best match on this show.
You're right. You are.
Okay. Well, we'll move on. We'll move on for now, and maybe continue this conversation another time.
Yeah. Cash and trash. Jeez. Alrighty, then we'll switch gears to our cash and our trash, and since we to get the taste out of our mouth from the previous discussion, why don't we start with the cash for this? So what's your main positive takeaway from here?
The focus on the local talent and the fact that they gave them the opportunity to step into the ring with the national names, with the names that were huge in women's wrestling. You were saying that Kelly Skater was starting to establish herself in the States. Obviously, she had a following back in Australia, a trainee of Madison Eagles, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
You give Anastasia Ivy the chance to step into the ring with Allison Danger, even though, like I said, I still think that should have been switched. Ivy with Skater, Sweet Cherry with Danger. But regardless, Shanae and Mary Lee Rose got the opportunity to step into the ring with Melissa. I couldn't say Shanae without rolling my eyes there about her being in a match with Melissa, but that's personal opinion. Calamity got a chance to...
I'm going to have to stop you here. Let's be quite honest. They shouldn't have been.
Oh, no. 100% agree. That match would have been better off if Cherry Bomb wasn't able to go, that match should have been a singles match, Mary Lee Rose versus Melissa.
Absolutely.
That's beside the point. That's beside the point. Personal biases aside here. I also mentioned that Calamity got to work Mercedes there. So these are all the big names that you have, and you're featuring local talents against them, people that are going to be around for the NCW shows that you're going to have for people to come to as well. So giving them the opportunity to step into the spotlight against national marquee names, North American marquee names, I guess, more specifically in this regard, because most of them were better. Most of those women are best known in the U.S. rather than in Canada. Giving your local talent the chance to step into the ring with names of that caliber does nothing but raise their level, in my opinion, to a certain extent, anyways.
Actually, having a little bit of trouble with my cash, just because there's a lot of positives. There's a ton of positives here, but I'm having trouble picking out just one. Mostly because you kind of ended up stealing mine, because the fact of the focus on the local talent, like you said, with Sweet Cherry, with somewhat Shanae, Mary Lee Rose, LuFisto obviously picking up the win, are all very, very good things. I think my main takeaway is not so much the focus on the local talent, but it's the fact that by this point, you're able to see Femme Fatales' growth. You had Kong at 4. Was the match absolutely horrific? Yes, but you still had Awesome Kong, or Amazing Kong, or whatever the hell you want to call her at this point. You also... And I'm comparing this between the first and this iteration, the fifth one. You now have your own title, which I don't care how big or small the company you are, I think you should have a title. You should have a goal that your wrestlers are trying to shoot for. Are you going to have to beat probably one of the best wrestlers in all of Canada, if not the world? Yes. So it'll take a hell of a woman to knock LuFisto off the mount. But there's still something there to shoot for. Should a almost specifically local talent have won the belt in first? Well, storybook ending, so, that's forgivable. And now you're getting the bigger names. You're getting Melissa. You're getting Mercedes. You're getting Hamada. So just to see how much it's grown over the 5 shows, and even between 4 and 5. And the way it would go in the future. The very next show, and I can say this because you've already watched the show, the very next show, if I'm not mistaken, had 3 title matches? I think it had Mercedes defend the WSU title, it had Eagles in her Shimmer debut defend the Shimmer title, and had LuFisto defend the international title. So it would only become bigger and bigger in the future, but it was great to see its growth now. So that's my cash for this, is seeing how much it's come, or how far it's come just in the previous, I think, year and a half.
Was it Eagles or Soraya?
No, it was definitely Eagles. I know I saw a promo. I think it was either during the show or I don't remember, because I know one did not have the belt at this point.
You're right. It's technically the main event of 6 is a tag match, not a title match. The main event of 6 is Calamity and Portia against Melissa and Martinez. I think 7. I think 7 was the one with 3 titles defended.
That's weird. I could have sworn that that 6 was the Triple Champion show.
Anna Minoushka versus Sweet Sherry, Anastasia Ivy and Angie Sky against the Sherbrooke Connection, because apparently they got deemed appropriate for main event talent for the 6th show. Whatever. Brittany Savage and Cherry Bomb. Sarah Lean versus LuFisto for the title. Mary Lee Rose and Mistress Belmont. Madison Eagles and Courtney Rush. Calamity and Portia versus Melissa and Martinez.
Madison was there, though.
Yes, that might have actually been a Shimmer title match, but so there may have been 2 title matches. Maybe Brittany Savage defended the WSU Spirit title against Sherry.
No. So in this case, there were 2 titles because it was Eagles and Rush was a title match as well. But anyway, so moving from that, we must end on a sour taste here. What is your trash for this show?
We kind of already discussed it. I really don't feel the need to go through it again in its entirety, but it's the production issues that they had for this show. You would think that by the 5th show for a company, and especially the 5th show for a company that wanted to make its intention known as being a major player in women's wrestling, and Fatales wanted to do there, the fact that they started to bring in all these bigger name talents there, you think they'd be able to get their crap together on the production values of the show. So my trash is the fact that the camera work is shoddy at best at times. Obviously the production issues with the graphics for a couple of the matches. And then just as importantly here too is the overall presentation during the course of the show itself. No commentary for its fans. And even if you're going to give people the option to have French commentary there, you can do that for your fans there, depending on where in Canada this is. I think this is around Quebec, right?
It's it's either a suburb or it's in Montreal.
So yeah, it's in the French part of Canada, because obviously there are French parts of Canada and there are English parts of Canada, but it's in the French part of Canada. So even if you're giving people the option for French commentary, like they had the interviews that were in French or some of the earlier DVDs there, give them the option to have something to listen to, rather than having them sit there in silence and just all they have is the sounds of the crowd and the sounds of the matches there. The production values on the show are terrible.
Yeah, mine's the exact same. That's why I said damn it, because it was going to be a complete repeat. But yeah, the one thing I will say is they've never done commentary, and the specific reason for that, and I know this for a fact, is because their DVD sales are almost split 50-50 between Canada and America, with like a little bit internationally, and they have openly told me that they don't want to do commentary because it would force them to have to do 2 sets of commentary and would take up even more space on a disc. So I know that part. But yeah, that part does kind of suck. There's a lot of times that on this show, yes, we gripe about commentary, especially when we're covering specific shows, but I would rather have bad commentary than no commentary. And yeah,
I would rather have. I'd rather have commentary I don't understand than no commentary.
Works for New Japan. But yeah, besides that, there were a lot of times you couldn't hear the music. The interviews were separate. I do know that because I just never got a chance to watch them. But the interviews were in the special features. The one thing I will say is the interviews, their interviewer, who's actually a very good friend of mine by the name of Pat LaPrade, is fluent in both French and English. He will do the interview in whatever the wrestler's strongest language is. So if their strong language is French, they'll do it in French. If their strong language is English, they'll do it in English. So like Melissa, Mercedes, Portia, Matthews, Rush, Cat Power, whoever, they would have their interviews still done in English. So I know that part. But it's just, the audio issues, and there were a couple that I had to pause the show just because of the handy cam that they were using at ringside, just because it was shaking so much and it drove me nuts. It's not, and we don't generally go into looking for, we don't go into these shows looking for problems. Generally, they find us. But if your camera work is giving me a headache and I'm watching it on my DVD at home, there's a problem. There's a big problem. I want to say in the future it does get better, but here, not good at all. Alrighty. One final thing before we get out of here.
Okay. One thing I do need to quickly correct you on. We actually do kind of go into the show there a little nitpicky at times, though. I mean, we kind of have to. It's what we do with Cash and Trash. But more times than not, as you said, though, it's the things that make themselves obvious are the ones that we bitch about. Like, I try not to focus on what I consider to be any kind of a small issue, I try not to focus on something that I consider to be a non-factor in the overall presentation of the show there. In the instance of tonight's show, and the fact that we're covering this Femme Fatales show here, these problems are significant issues with the show itself because they make the show difficult to watch as far as its presentation, and it has nothing to do with the in-ring product, well, with the exception of one match.
Yeah. Well, and what I meant was we don't. When we make a choice to do something, whether it be a show, a DVD set, or whatever, when we pick that show, we don't pick that show for bad commentary. We don't pick that show for audio issues. We don't pick that show because of graphical issues. We just pick that show. And it's just stuff that finds us. It's stuff that we notice throughout. But, okay. In tonight's case, maybe we picked the show knowing that the Anna Minoushka match was going to suck. Okay, fine. But we knew if we got past that, as a matter of fact, we discussed this exact thing. If we got past that match, we got a bonus at the end with the final two matches. All we had to do was get past that match. So, okay, we may pick a show for a match, but it's other things that find us in terms of issues that we discover while watching it.
Oh, no. I guarantee you that, by and large, probably for both of us, we probably thought Hamada and LuFisto was going to be the match that we spent the most time talking about tonight, and it wasn't. The match we spent the most time talking about tonight was Kat and Courtney Rush.
Mary.
Bound and determined to get that in, aren't you?
Damn right. Anyway, before we get out of here, one final thing. Harry, what's your final score?
That depends.
Oh, boy.
If we're going strictly by what we saw in the ring, my final score would be in the neighborhood of an 8.
We don't call it the final in-the-ring score. We call it the final overall score.
I'm getting to that. If we were going solely by what happened in the ring, the matches themselves, it would be an 8 because there were 3 really good matches and 2 very watchable matches. Obviously, the street fight, Calamity and Mercedes, and then the international title match are the 3 really good ones. I actually thought the 3-way with Melissa, Shanae, and Mary Lee Rose was okay. I mean, a little bit of bias there, I'll admit. I enjoyed the character work from Caroline and Karen Brooks in their match, even if I didn't enjoy the match itself. I thought Skater and Sherry, for the time that it got, was okay. So if we're talking specifically about what happens in the ring there, I'm actually a really big fan of this show there. Unfortunately, it's the other things that surround a wrestling show such as this that drive this show down to me. It's the production values. It's the lack of commentary. It's the fact that the cameraman can't decide if he's winding his watch or scratching his ass. Wow. I meant to steal St. Holmes' quote there, and I screwed it up and actually said it correctly.
Was it supposed to be winding his ass or scratching his watch?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's how DSH always says it. He doesn't know whether to scratch his watch or wind his ass. And anyways, back to what I was saying. It's just all those little things with all the external stuff that come in and take away from the in-ring value of the show that I can't overlook. So while if we were talking about solely what happened in the ring, I would be looking at probably about an 8. Given all of the production issues and everything in regards to the presentation of the product and everything, I'm going all the way down to a 6.5 here. Patrick?
So you're going
6.5.
So basically you're going an 8 for in-ring, a 5 for production, average it out to a 6.5.
Yep, splitting the difference. That more or less sums it up.
Makes sense.
Hey, Patrick.
Yes?
I'm at a 6.5. Where do you fall?
Well, after your very lengthy explanation.
Yeah, well, we both know I can be kind of long-winded at times.
You're still doing it. Anyway. The problem, like I said, the problem is that I 100% agree with you. The production issues, this is one of the rare cases, and we haven't had very much of this, but we have had cases. There was a PWG show where it sounded like commentary was in a broom closet, and we said that affected our score. There's another one, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Where production issues actually took away from us. This is absolutely one of those cases. Just because you can't hear the music, I'll forgive no commentary, but be that as it may, you can barely hear the music, you can barely hear the promos. As you said, the cameraman doesn't know whether he's scratching his watch or winding his ass. It does take away from me. Now, I don't know that I would have given it an 8 for the in-ring. I probably would still have given it a 7 just because those matches that are on the negative side, there's one really bad outlier. Obviously, we made fun of it the entire night, but that's a really bad outlier. And while there's, like you said, 3 very good matches, one of which is painfully short, none of those are really an outlier enough to offset that negative outlier. I just said that word a lot. So I probably would have given a 7 for the in-ring, and I would probably... I'm going to end up with the exact same damn score as you. I'm going to go with a 6 because of the production issue, so average it out, and I'm going to end up being a 6.5 too. Just because the production issues I think you're letting the lack of commentary draw back a little bit more than it should. Yes, there's production issues. And yes, they do take away from the show, but I'm a little more forgiving. I'm one of the most crabby people about that you know, and you've admitted that to me. But I'll give that aspect a 6, so I'll average it out to a 6.5 as well.
Well, one of the reasons you're more forgiving about commentary than I am is because of the fact that we've long established on the show that play-by-play commentary is what I do in regards to independent wrestling. So I know how much good commentary can help a show, and I know just as well how much bad commentary can hurt a show. And in addition, I think that no commentary can hurt a show just as much as bad commentary.
Yeah, there's very little doubt about that.
So that's the only reason that I harp on that as much as I do while we're talking about while we're doing our reviews for these shows.
Yeah.
All right. So before we go into our final go home spiel and everything, there, it's been a while. I want to say X7. It might have been the only other time that we've completely agreed on a final score since we started back up.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because I know we both gave X7 a 10, even though our producer disagreed and is wrong.
No, Sean, you're never wrong. Please, wait, Sean, you are never wrong. Please don't disconnect my mic.
He's never wrong. There was one time he thought he was incorrect, but he was mistaken. Anyways. But anyways, back to what I was saying there. Yeah, I think X7, this might be the first time since X7 we completely agreed on a final score. Before we get out of here, we have a couple bills to pay before we go into our conversation about non-wrestling things here that I wanted to have at the end of the show, because we touched on this briefly. Tonight's episode of Wrestling Unwrapped has been brought to you by the Madhouse Toy Chest. Stores.ebay.com/Madhouse Toy Chest for all of your professional wrestling wants and needs. And in addition, you can get all kinds of other stuff there, too. I mean, we talk about all the wrestling stuff you can find there. You can also find stuff like movies, books, DVDs, video games, pretty much anything electronic related that you can think of. You can CDs. You can find inside of the Madhouse Toy Chest, and obviously all of the wrestling stuff we talk about, too. Action figures, DVDs, VHS tapes, Blu-rays, video games, and a host of all other things there. That is stores.ebay.com. Jason Kunkel and the Madhouse Toy Chest. If you mention you heard this advertisement here on Wrestling Unwrapped, you can get yourself a free gift with your purchase as well.
And as always, we are a presentation of the W2M Network. You can find them online at w2mnet.com and in partnership with what?
I was just saying, I got it right.
And in partnership with 411mania.com. I don't want to do this.
Well, you just do first round picks for this one right here, so when we have them in broadcast format.
I can't.
Are you afraid the Cubs are going to go out round one to the Nets? Because you'd probably be right about that.
I can't. I'm way too nervous about any and everything. I can't.
Sean, would you like to join me?
For those that don't know, obviously he's talking about the MLB playoffs, and I'm too big and too nervous and have experienced too much crap between 98, 03, 07, 08, and last year. I can't.
Sean, I really hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but if Toronto comes out of that wild card game against Baltimore, you're screwed. I think you guys take out Baltimore if Baltimore wins, but I think Toronto beats Texas in 5. Patrick, I had a chance to see the Mets up close and personal quite a bit this year. As you know, I'm a Braves fan. This Mets team is good. Pray that the Giants win on Wednesday night.
The problem is, even still, it's a saying that you may know, I've heard a few times, and it's one of our favorite commentators who's not on ESPN anymore, and he always used to say it. Don't bet against the Giants.
And it is an even year, too, so that might screw you even further. Just 2010, 2012, 2014.
It's one of those things where it's going to hurt too much this time. If the Cubs were to get eliminated, it would hurt probably too much this time.
Well, to that I just say this. At least you didn't almost lose 100 games like a certain other team on this panel.
We did that a few years ago. Anyway.
All right. So we haven't won it since like 97, though, so it's not like it's been...
$1908. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Anyway.
I'm sure nobody's listening to our baseball discussion anyway, so since you guys don't want to step up and make predictions with me, I guess I'll just have to post my predictions on my own personal Facebook page. You guys suck.
Anyway. Are we
Go
done?
Bills!
I know. I'm paying attention too because my battery's almost dead. Harry, can we wrap up, please?
Well, then just edit it and take off the conversation about baseball. It's not like anybody will hear this anyway. We already did our wrap-up.
Anyway, for those that are still listening, no normal show for us next week, as it will be WWE. What the hell is next week? No Mercy.
It actually became French in its absence. It's now No Mercy.
Screw Marie. Screw Miz. It's No Mercy.
I'm pretty sure there's a line to screw Maurice, but that's beside the point as well.
Anyway, with that main event, a triple threat match for the WWE World Championship, Dean Ambrose will take on John Cena, taking on the face that runs the place, the world champion, AJ Styles. I don't think Cena's winning, but that's neither here nor there. We'll discuss that whenever the hell the post-game show starts next Sunday night. We will be back in 2 weeks. We have an idea for a show, but I actually still have to send the damn show to Harry. Hopefully he gets it in 2 weeks.
Wait, no, I don't think we can do that in 2 weeks, because we just did an independent show tonight. I think we have to do a Fed show next time. Kind of how this works. Kind of how all of this works.
Well, yeah, fair enough. We'll figure it out.
Stay tuned to the Wrestling Unwrapped Facebook page, facebook.com/Wrestling Unwrapped.
Yeah. Or you can find us on Twitter at WUOffTheShelf, or on Twitter at HebTheEagle, or on Twitter at PatCutso.
So help me God, you call me Heb the Eagle one more freaking time.
What's your Twitter?
They're individual letters. It's HEB. It's my initials.
Oh, jeez. All right, fine. At HEB the Eagle. At
Thank
Legal
you.
Beagle. At the Legal Beagle.
I'm pretty sure that's probably an actual Twitter account you just plugged, so I'm sure they'll thank you for that.
Anyway,
all right, let's get out of here.
Thank you. Until next week. Well, until 2 weeks for us now. Until next Sunday night for Woo 2M. For our producer, Sean Garmer, he's Harry Broadhurst. I'm Pastor Ketza. You've been listening to Wrestling Unwrapped as we talk about NCW Femme Fatales, number 5. Go Cubs. But damn, you guys scared me.